Have you ever seen a ghost? Have you ever seen one that was smiling at you through a window? Have you ever seen one that was a part of you? There was a small seaside town in Japan called Yukawa. It was an unremarkable place with an unremarkable population who had simple, unremarkable lives. And so it was in this unremarkable town that something remarkable happened. One day, a brand new shop appeared. No one had seen it being built. The building just materialized seemingly out of thin air. In fact, every morning the townspeople would wake up and find that the door had creaked open just a little bit overnight, and inside sat an old woman with shockingly pale, glassy eyes who sold nothing all day but a single tall mirror. The mirror was wrapped in a cloth and seemed to glimmer strangely, like sunlight bouncing off of water. It wasn't particularly valuable or beautiful, but for some reason people were drawn to it. They would enter the shop, stare into the mirror, and then leave without saying a word. None of them bought the mirror, but they also didn't seem particularly upset about the reflection that stared back at them. What's more, the townspeople began to smile more often and seemed generally happier. They walked down the street whistling, chatting with neighbors and laughing easily. They seemed kinder, gentler, and more free. One day, a high school girl named Aya found herself walking towards the strange shop. She was a quiet girl who kept to herself. She liked reading books about myths and folklore, especially stories about yokai, which are supernatural monsters or spirits in Japanese folklore. For some reason, she had always felt drawn to the eerie and mysterious, the unsettling things that made other people uncomfortable. So, when she heard about the strange shop and the enigmatic old woman inside, she knew she had to go see for herself. As she approached the store, she could hear the gentle tinkling of a bell and smelled the sweet aroma of incense. Peeking inside, she saw the old woman sitting behind the counter. The woman's eyes seemed to gleam like polished stones. Taking a deep breath, Aya pushed the door open and stepped inside. "Hello?" Aya said softly, her voice echoing in the silent room. The old woman didn't respond right away, but simply stared at Aya's reflection in the mirror. "What's in this mirror?" Aya asked, unable to take her eyes off its shimmering surface. "Your truest self," the old woman finally said, her voice raspy like dead leaves. Intrigued, Aya leaned closer to the mirror. She saw herself, of course, but there was something different about her reflection. Her hair seemed darker, her eyes larger, and her smile a little wider. Startled by how strange her reflection looked, Aya quickly stepped back from the mirror. Was this really her truest self? The old woman slowly nodded her head. Aya couldn't help but feel a sense of unease wash over her. Something about the mirror and its enigmatic message felt unsettling, as if she were standing on the edge of a precipice peering into the abyss. Yet she couldn't tear her gaze away. The pull to uncover her truest self was too strong to resist. As the days passed, Aya found herself drawn back to the mirror again and again. Each time she gazed into its depths, her reflection seemed to change slightly, becoming more and more unfamiliar. At first, the changes were subtle. Her eyes seemed a deeper shade of blue, her hair a richer chestnut. But as time went on, the differences became more pronounced. Her skin took on a sickly pallor, her smile grew unnaturally wide, and her eyes glinted with a predatory hunger. Aya couldn't help but wonder who or what was staring back at her from the mirror's surface. Was this the true nature of her being? Something dark and dangerous lurking beneath her ordinary facade? Or was it something else entirely? Then one night, Aya awoke from a dreamless sleep to hear a soft tapping sound. At first, she assumed it was just a branch tapping against her window in the wind. But as the tapping continued, she realized that something was not right. Sitting up in bed, she walked over to the window and peered out into the darkness. What she saw made her blood run cold. There in the moonlight, silhouetted against the night sky, was a figure standing on the window ledge. The figure was dressed in clothes just like hers. It was her, or rather her reflection, grinning wickedly at her from beyond the glass. But that was impossible. Her reflection should have been trapped inside the mirror. Panicked, she stumbled back from the window and fell onto her bed. Her heart pounded in her chest as she watched the tapping continue, as if her reflection was trying to get her attention. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure vanished. Trembling, Aya pulled the covers over her head and tried to make herself believe it was just a figment of her imagination. But even as she did, she couldn't help but feel a sense of dread and foreboding settle over her. She knew in her heart that she was not safe. The next morning, Aya awoke to the sound of birds chirping outside her window. The previous night's events felt like a fever dream, something that couldn't possibly have happened. Yet the memory of the tapping and the grinning figure still lingered at the back of her mind. Shaking off her unease, she got out of bed and went to the bathroom. Staring back at her from the mirror was her own face, pale and drawn. But as she looked closer, she noticed something that made her gasp. Her lips were split into a wide grin, revealing teeth that were far too sharp and long. It was as if she had just bitten into an apple and the skin around her mouth had been torn and split. Terrified, she reached out to touch her mouth, but her fingers came away clean. Had her reflection somehow seeped into her world and changed her without her knowledge? Just then, she saw a flash of movement in the corner of her eye. Turning, she saw her own reflection standing in the doorway. Its eyes gleamed with a predatory hunger, and its smile was a grotesque parody of her own. With a scream, Aya stumbled backwards, knocking over the sink and sending water splashing everywhere. But her reflection only continued to advance, its grin widening until it was a full-fledged snarl. Panic seized Aya. She ran out of the bathroom and raced to her room, locking the door behind her. She knew that whatever was happening to her, she couldn't hide forever. The following day, the antique shop was gone. The building simply vanished as if it had never been there at all. All that remained was a cracked mirror frame leaning against the alley wall. Aya's friends noticed her new smile. It was wider than it should be, the edges of her lips faintly torn. When they asked what happened, Aya only tilted her head and said, "I've found my truest self." And that night, more students reported tapping at their windows. When we look into a mirror, we see our reflection looking back at us. It is a familiar sight that we encounter every day. But have you ever wondered what lies behind the surface of that glass? What if the reflection staring back at us is not our own, but something else entirely? Something sinister, something malevolent that is looking to escape into our world. The story of the girl and the antique mirror is a chilling tale that explores the dark side of our reflections. It is a reminder that not everything is as it seems, and that sometimes the things we desire the most can also be our greatest downfall. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up for more scary stories. Until next time.